yeah, I will.
Those are pretty light.
I'm just gonna shoot the right side. This looks fun. That shell hit you though, didn't it?
Yeah, bounced right off my hat.
Yeah.
Hit the bottom target on that one. What?
You hit the bottom target on that one.
Alright, hold on.
Put a big hole in it, see it?
Oh yeah. Alright, here we go.
Oh, nice.
How'd you do, kid?
That's crazy. I didn't expect it to be that. Like, I was like, where's the target? And I'm like, wait, I'm going to this. And then I moved my head. It's like right there.
Yeah, he's
That's crazy.
same side. Aim at the lower side. I'm gonna see what. Alright?
Okay.
One shot. Alright? I gave you two, but take one time when I tell you.
I was finally able to take the RTI Mannlicher 88/90 to the range. You saw the footage. Now I'll discuss the loading, how it shot, and my impressions. Let's start at the beginning with the ammunition. Again, this rifle is chambered in 8x50R Austrian. The cases I used were ones that I had made for my Siamese Mauser, which was chambered in 8x50 Siamese. They're converted from 7.62x54R. The Austrian and the Siamese cartridges are very similar dimensionally and are practically interchangeable. For the bullet, I cast them using a Lee .329 mold, 205 grains, and lead from range scrap. The bullets are lubricated with a mix of beeswax and Crisco, and they're sized with a .329 sizing die and gas checked. I had to expand the case mouths just a little bit to accommodate the larger .329 bullet, and for that I made this expander. I originally wanted to load these with black powder, but I've been having a hard time finding it, and I didn't want to use a substitute, so I went with smokeless, IMR 4227. I used only 18 grains. Research online had other people loading between 18 and 22. So that's the ammo I used. How did it shoot? First off, it went bang on all 10 shots. And the bullets left the barrel on all 10 shots, which is important to keep track of when shooting these very light loads. There was one time where I was a bit unsure, and I had to remove the bolt to double check that I could see daylight through the barrel. Better safe than sorry. The last thing you want on any rifle like this is a bore obstruction. For the loading of the rounds, if you're familiar at all with Mannlicher style rifles, you are probably screaming at me for single loading it. Well, I don't have a clip for it, and there hasn't been a gun show in my area for a while for me to pick one up. I placed the round with the bullet in the chamber and the case resting on the magazine follower. That way when the bolt goes forward, the bolt face would bottom out on the case head, pushing it into the chamber with the extractor fully lipped over the rim. What you don't want to do is to fully chamber the round and then close the bolt. That could damage the extractor by forcing it to spring over the rim of the case. Next chance I have, I definitely pick up a clip to shoot this with. That way I can work the action how it's supposed to be worked as well. There was only one small issue when shooting. I had some trouble when I was making the ammo and accidentally set a few of the primers too deep. I measured them recessed by about 15 thousandths. So that resulted in just one light strike, where actually my range buddy, had to eject the round and rechamber it since there's no way to recock the striker on this rifle. It did go off with the second hit of the firing pin, and the other rounds with the deeper primers were all set off by the first strike. And finally we're at the point of discussing the grouping, or the lack thereof. Before I show the target, let me just say that it's not unexpected. It's keyholing. The bullets are tumbling and hitting the target sideways. I set the target up about 25 yards because I knew this was going to happen. If you haven't seen my 2 videos on cleaning the bore on this, go and check them out to take a deep dive into the bore of this rifle. But to summarize, there was essentially no rifling in the last 12 inches of the barrel. There was deep pitting in the last 9 or so inches, and I smoothed that out by running sandpaper down the bore. I was nervous that the pitting would cause a bore obstruction by shaving lead off of the bullets, potentially building up into a big issue, and then making the rifle unsafe to shoot. So by smoothing out the pitting, not only is the last part of the barrel a smooth bore, but it's also a larger diameter than the bullet. I had measured .338 at the muzzle compared to the .329 that it should be. The faint rifling in the first part of the barrel wasn't enough to stabilize the bullet, and it tumbled down range, resulting in this target. There's 5 holes on here, and there was just 1 off the paper. I had fired the first 4 rounds at a different point of aim, expecting the bullets to hit high like most milsurp rifles would when fired at close range, but this loading was light enough that it was shooting just a bit low. So with the last 6 rounds being fired at roughly here, I consider all the shots to at least be on paper despite the keyholing. Circling back to the ammunition, this is how the fired case looks, and compared to the unfired case. You can see the shoulder has been blown forward by quite a bit. This rifle evidently has a loose chamber, which is not totally uncommon, but I can't actually reload these cases by neck sizing. It's probably too short to properly hold the bullet. When researching powder charges, I did see that some people converted 7.62x54R brass just like I did, but that they didn't trim the cases at all, leaving them 54mm long. These rifles also have long throats which can accommodate the extra long cases, which might be a remnant of the original ammunition for the black powder Mannlicher 88 rifles, which actually shot an 8x52R. For my next rounds, I'm going to leave the converted brass untrimmed, and maybe bump up the powder charge by a little bit.
Take your left foot.
He almost didn't even hit the friggin' stand.
Popped up my feet.
I'll quickly recap how the second shooting session went. I bumped up the powder charge from 18 grains of .4227 to 22 grains. Recoil went up a bit. Before it felt like a BB gun, and now it feels like an AR-15. The bullets were hitting at about the point of aim, which is why when I showed the target they were all hitting at the top of the paper, since that's where I was aiming before. The unconverted 7.62x54 R brass performed well. There was only one time I had trouble closing the action fully, causing a light strike. That's probably due to the brass being slightly too big for the chamber, but it did go off when I tried again. And speaking of that, the action is very, very stiff. Now that I've seen a couple other videos of people shooting their 8890s, this one seems a lot harder to work than any other one. There's no numbers on the bolt, but it's safe to say that this is not the original bolt due to how tightly it locks up, and I suppose that's better than it being too loose. But I really had to slam the bolt forward to get it fully closed. And if it wasn't, it would close that last little bit when the firing pin falls. A safe design, but it causes light strikes, which looking back is probably what happened during the first shooting session. But getting back to the action, I really had to rip it back to get it to open, and sometimes it was hard to get a good grip. Regarding the accuracy, yes, it's still keyholing. I suppose my bore sanding was controversial, but I stand by the decision to do something about it. The pitting was just too much. It's hard to show on video exactly what I'm seeing when I look through the bore with my own eyes. But not only that, the resistance I felt when running a brush or the patch down the bore was like nothing I've ever felt before. I have to reiterate that accuracy was never a concern. Yes, I could probably have shot it as is, closely monitoring it between shots, but I have no doubt the target would look the same as this one. And honestly, it's not all that bad. The first 4 I shot with the target showing all hit here, and later on these 2 hit when I was aiming at the center dot. So that's a wrap for the RTI Mannlicher 88/90 series. I will be bringing this out to the range again in the future, mostly because I finally got some clips and I can try working the action how it's supposed to be worked. And one more thing, I ordered an M95B grade from RTI. Stay tuned for that in the future if you like this series. Thanks for watching.